The father of the person you love made a big decision about you this morning. What he decided will surprise you. Find out now. My beloved child. Something changed this morning, and the person you love may still be trying to understand just how important it is. Their father made a decision about you. Not casually. Not in the middle of some ordinary conversation. He had been thinking about you for longer than anyone realized, quietly watching the way his child reacts whenever your name comes up, remembering certain things he had heard about you, and questioning whether you were truly someone he could trust with a heart he has spent years protecting. Until this morning, he had kept his real opinion guarded. But then something happened that pushed him to finally say what he had been holding back. And when he spoke, the person you love was completely unprepared for the words that came next. Don't skip, because the surprising part is not simply that he made a decision. It is what caused him to change his mind. For a while, their father had doubts he never fully explained. They were not necessarily about something you had done wrong. They came from fear. He knows how deeply the person you love can feel, and he has seen what disappointment can do to them. So whenever your name entered the conversation, he listened more carefully than he spoke. He noticed whether their face became brighter. He noticed how quickly they defended you when someone misunderstood your intentions. Most importantly, he noticed something his child probably believed they were hiding. This was not a temporary attraction. Their feelings for you had become serious. That realization frightened him at first, because serious love means serious consequences. But recently, he began seeing another side of the situation. He heard something about your character that did not match the assumptions he had quietly carried. Then this morning, one final conversation gave him the missing piece. He suddenly understood why his child had refused to let their feelings for you disappear. What happened next surprised even the person you love. Their father did not raise his voice or deliver some dramatic warning. Instead, he became unusually calm and asked a question about you, one so specific that it revealed he had been paying attention all along. After hearing the answer, he went silent for several seconds. Then he admitted that he may have judged this connection too quickly. But that was only the beginning. There was something else he had decided before that conversation ended, something far more meaningful than simply choosing not to stand in the way. Stay till the end, because his decision could completely change how openly the person you love is able to move toward you. And when he finally told them exactly what he was willing to do concerning you, their reaction said everything. They had been waiting to hear these words for much longer than you know, but there is one condition their father attached to his decision, and that condition is about you. The condition was not what the person you love expected to hear. Their father was not demanding that they walk away from you, and he was not asking them to prove that their feelings were real. Instead, he wanted one thing before giving this relationship his full support: he wanted the chance to understand you for himself. Not through rumors. Not through someone else's opinion. Not through the fears he had built in his own mind. He wanted to see the person his child had been describing with such emotion. And there was something powerful about the way he said it. His voice no longer carried the resistance that had made the person you love nervous before. There was curiosity now. Even respect. But then he revealed why he had reached this decision so suddenly, and that explanation left the person you love almost speechless. Someone had told him something about you recently, something he had not been able to forget. What he heard was surprisingly simple, but it changed the entire picture. He learned about a moment when you could have chosen the easy path, protected only yourself, or responded in a way that would have hurt someone, but you did not. Whether you realized anyone would ever hear about it or not, your behavior revealed something about your character. Their father paid attention to that detail because character mattered more to him than appearances, promises, or impressive words. Suddenly, certain things his child had said about you began making sense. He remembered how they had described feeling understood by you. He remembered hearing that you had remained important to them even during moments of uncertainty. And then he asked his child one question: if things became difficult, do you truly believe this person would still treat you with respect? The answer came immediately. No hesitation. No uncertainty. That instant response affected him more deeply than they expected. But there was another reason behind his change of heart, and the person you loved did not discover it until later that morning. After the conversation seemed finished, their father called them back and said there was something else they needed to know. He admitted that he had been watching their happiness closely, especially whenever your name appeared in their life. He had seen them become quieter during distance, lighter during moments of hope, and strangely protective whenever someone questioned what they felt for you. That was when he realized his resistance might not be protecting his child anymore. It might actually be standing between them and something genuine. So he made a decision: he would stop judging your connection from a distance and give you a real opportunity to become part of their world. But don't skip what comes next, because just before walking away, he revealed one private conversation he had already had about you, and the person he spoke to may change everything. The person he had spoken to was someone whose opinion carried real weight in the family, and that made the revelation even more surprising. Before telling his child about his decision, their father had quietly approached this person and asked what they truly thought about you. He expected caution. Maybe even resistance. Instead, he heard something that stopped him in his tracks. They told him that whenever the person you love speaks about you, there is a different kind of certainty in their voice. Not excitement that disappears overnight, but something calmer and deeper. They had noticed it too. More importantly, they believed you had become emotionally significant in a way the family could no longer dismiss. Their father listened without interrupting, and for the first time, he began wondering whether everyone had been focusing on the wrong question. Maybe the question was never, should this relationship happen? Maybe it was, what if this relationship is already more serious than we realize? That thought followed him through the morning. He remembered small details he had previously ignored. The way his child became defensive when someone judged you unfairly, the way they refused to replace you emotionally even when circumstances became confusing, and the strange calm that appeared whenever they believed there was still hope between you. Then came an admission he never expected to hear from the family member he trusted: "I think you should give them a chance." Those words mattered. Their father had spent so much time imagining what could go wrong that he had barely considered what could go right. Suddenly, protecting his child meant something different. It did not mean controlling every possibility. It meant making sure that if this connection moved forward, it had room to become honest, respectful, and real. And that is why his decision this morning was bigger than simple approval. He was preparing to take an actual step toward you. But the person you love still did not know exactly what that step would be. At first, they assumed their father simply meant he would stop objecting. Then he said something that made them look at him twice. He wanted them to tell you something directly when the right moment came. Something huge is waiting for you, because this was not a warning or an attempt to scare you away. He wanted you to know that the door was no longer closed. In fact, he was willing to have a real conversation with you, without hostility and without deciding who you were before hearing you speak for yourself. The person you love felt an immediate rush of relief, but their father had one more surprise. Before that conversation could happen, he wanted to reveal the real reason he had been so resistant from the beginning. And when his child finally heard that reason, they realized his fear had never truly been about you at all. His resistance had been rooted in an old memory he rarely talked about. Years ago, their father had watched someone close to him trust the wrong person, ignore every warning sign, and slowly lose confidence in themselves because of that relationship. He never forgot what helplessness felt like. So when he realized his own child was developing serious feelings for you, that old fear returned before he even had enough information to judge you fairly. He was not reacting to your character. He was reacting to a painful possibility from the past. When he finally admitted this, the person you love saw him differently. His questions, his distance, even his hesitation suddenly made sense. But then he said something neither of you would have expected from him weeks ago. He knew it was unfair to make you pay for another person's mistakes. That admission changed the emotional weight of everything that happened next. The person you love asked him what had finally convinced him to separate the past from the present. His answer was surprisingly specific. He said he had been watching not only how his child spoke about you, but who they became when they believed things between you might work out. They seemed more thoughtful about the future. More willing to face difficult conversations instead of avoiding them. And whenever someone tried to reduce your connection to something temporary, they refused to do the same. Their father realized that whatever existed between you had already challenged his child to think seriously about loyalty, patience, and commitment. That did not prove everything would be perfect, and he knew it. But it proved something important: you were not simply occupying their attention. You had reached a place in their heart that was influencing the decisions they imagined making about their future. And then their father asked the question that made the room suddenly feel much quieter. He looked directly at his child and asked, "If I gave you my support, what would you actually do about this person?" For a moment, there was silence. The person you love could have given him an easy answer, but they did not. They admitted they wanted something real with you. They wanted the uncertainty to end. They wanted the chance to discover what the two of you could become without constantly feeling that family resistance was waiting around the corner. Their father listened carefully, then gave a slow nod. But he was not finished. He said that if those feelings were truly that serious, he would no longer be the reason they remained hidden. Don't skip what comes next, because the person you love responded with a decision of their own. And unlike everything they had been quietly feeling before, this decision involved reaching out to you much sooner than anyone expected. That decision came from a place of courage they had been struggling to find for weeks. The person you love realized that if their father was finally willing to stop standing against this connection, there was no longer a reason to keep hiding behind uncertainty. They told him they wanted to speak to you honestly. Not with vague hints or confusing signals, but with the kind of clarity that could finally tell you where their heart truly stood. Their father did not discourage them. Instead, he asked one unexpected question: "Are you prepared for this person to know how serious you are?" That question hit differently. Because admitting feelings is one thing. Admitting that you have imagined a future with someone is another. The person you love went quiet, but only for a moment. Then they answered yes. And what they confessed next revealed just how long they had been carrying thoughts about you in silence. They admitted that they had imagined bringing you closer to their family long before this morning. They had wondered what it would feel like to sit beside you without having to explain or defend the connection. They had pictured ordinary moments, conversations, laughter, shared meals, and the comfort of knowing that the people they cared about were no longer standing on opposite sides. But fear had kept those thoughts private. They worried that moving too quickly could create more resistance, or worse, put you in a position where you felt unwanted. Now that fear was beginning to loosen its grip. Their father could see it happening right in front of him. And instead of warning them to slow down, he said something unexpectedly gentle: "Then make sure this person knows they are being given a fair chance." Those words meant more than approval. They meant the atmosphere around your connection had genuinely begun to change. But there was still one detail their father had not revealed, and this is where the morning took another unexpected turn. Before his child could leave the conversation, he mentioned that he had already thought about when he might be willing to meet you. Not someday in some distant future. He had a much sooner moment in mind. The person you love immediately asked why he was moving so quickly after being cautious for so long. His answer surprised them. Once he realized his judgment had been influenced by old fear, he did not want pride to create another unnecessary delay. He wanted to see for himself how you treated his child when you were actually standing together. And then he added one sentence that stayed in their mind long after the conversation ended. He said there was something he planned to ask you personally when that meeting happened, a question whose answer could determine just how far his support for this relationship would go. The question he wanted to ask you was not about money, status, or whether you could impress him. It was much more personal than that. He wanted to know what you truly intended to do with the heart his child had placed so much hope in Deanna. Not what sounded good in the moment. Not what anyone else expected you to say. He wanted an honest answer about whether you saw this connection as something temporary or something worth protecting when life became complicated. When the person you love heard this, they became nervous, not because they doubted you, but because they suddenly understood how serious their father had become. He was no longer trying to find a reason to reject you. He was trying to discover whether he could trust you enough to welcome you closer. And beneath that question was another truth nobody had expected: he had already begun imagining what your presence in the family might actually look like. Later that morning, the person you love found themselves replaying every word. Their father's change had happened faster than they thought possible, yet it did not feel careless. It felt like the result of someone finally putting down an old fear and looking at the situation clearly. That realization gave them courage. They began thinking about how they would tell you what had happened, and for the first time, they did not want to soften the truth. They wanted you to know that your name had been spoken seriously inside their family. They wanted you to know that someone who had once been uncertain about you was now willing to meet you with an open mind. Most of all, they wanted you to understand what their own answer had been when their father asked how serious their feelings were. Because they had not hesitated. They had chosen you openly in that room, even though you were not there to hear it. But there was one final moment that made this morning unforgettable. Just before the conversation ended, their father stopped them and corrected something he had said earlier. He told them he was not merely allowing this relationship to move forward. That was not his decision to make. Their heart belonged to them. What he could decide was whether he would stand in the way or stand beside them, and this morning, he had chosen the second. The person you love felt something inside them finally release. Yet their father followed those words with a surprising request. When they spoke to you, he wanted them to deliver one message from him exactly as he meant it. Stay with this, because that message was not a warning. It was an invitation. And hidden inside it was the clearest sign yet that his decision about you had become far more positive than anyone imagined. The message was simple, but the meaning behind it was enormous. Tell them they don't have to be afraid of meeting me. The person you love stared at their father for a moment because those words were almost impossible to reconcile with the man who had once seemed so guarded about you. He explained that he did not want your first real interaction to feel like an interrogation. He wanted a conversation. He wanted to hear about your intentions in your own words and understand what his child saw in you without allowing old fears to speak louder than reality. Then he added something even more unexpected. If you came with honesty and respect, you would receive the same from him. That was the invitation. Not a guarantee that every concern would disappear instantly, but something far more believable and meaningful, a genuine opening where there had once been a wall. And the person you love immediately understood what this meant for the two of you. For the rest of the morning, they carried those words with them, thinking about how different everything suddenly felt. Until now, part of their heart had been divided between protecting their feelings for you and protecting peace within their family. They had worried that choosing one would eventually mean losing the other. But their father's decision created a possibility they had barely allowed themselves to imagine. Maybe they would not have to choose. Maybe you could slowly become someone their family understood instead of someone they feared. And something else changed inside the person you love at that moment. They no longer wanted you wondering whether you mattered enough for them to stand up for this connection. Their answer had already been given behind closed doors. When their father asked whether they were serious about you, they had not backed away. Now they wanted their actions to match those words, and they began considering exactly how they would approach you. What may surprise you most is that their father noticed this shift before they said anything else. He could see determination replacing hesitation, and instead of stopping it, he gave them one final piece of advice: don't make them guess what you feel. Those words stayed with the person you love because guessing has been part of the problem for too long. Unspoken feelings. Misread silence. Questions neither of you knew how to ask. Their father had unknowingly touched the exact place where this connection needed courage. So the person you love made another quiet decision before walking away. When the opportunity came, they would not approach you with half-truths anymore. They would tell you what happened that morning, what they told their father about you, and what they genuinely want next. But there is still one detail they have not decided how to reveal, the deeply personal reason the